good afternoon and happy Friday. My name is Josiah Gilliam and I serve as the My Brother's Keeper Coordinator in Mayor Bill Peduto's Office of Equity. And it's my honor to help facilitate a really exciting conversation today with some leaders in Pittsburgh and the region and in the state of Pennsylvania that I greatly respect. And to really highlight some critical work and some exciting developments that we really think will be encouraging and informative for a lot of folks. So without further ado, I just want to start with a round of introductions to introduce all who's on the call, and then we'll start with a high-level overview of what we're going to cover today and jump right in. So my friends, thank you so much for taking the time. Just if you would, your name, your organization, and the work that you do here in the region, and we'll start with Father Paul.
Yes, Josiah, so good to be with you and all the rest of you today. I'm Father Paul Abernathy. I'm the CEO of the Neighborhood Resilience Project, and our mission is to advance the transformation of neighborhoods from trauma-affected community to resilient, healing, and healthy community through trauma-informed community development. It's such a joy to be with you. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kathi.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about a topic that often isn't talked about, and it's about trauma and mental health. My name is Kathi Elliott. I'm the CEO of Gwen's Girls. We're a nonprofit here in Allegheny County that provides services to girls 8 through 18 in the after-school setting, and then also in school and in the community. We have a variety of different services that we will share later on towards the end of this conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Kathi. Mrs. Toya.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity and this invitation to come and talk with you. My name is Toya Jones. I am a professor at Pitt, and I'm a president and co-founder of Freedom Indeed LLC. That organization works with incarcerated population, ex-offenders, and also survivors of trauma. And I'm also the director of the bachelor's program at Pitt, where I teach about trauma. I teach trauma, and I teach those that want to become social workers and therapists within the field. And so I really see this as a great opportunity to pull us all together and talk about what we know and what we know our Black folks and our folks out there in the community are experiencing, and that's trauma on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Tay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Davontae, or Tay, and I am the lead youth organizer with the Alliance for Police Accountability. And I'm specifically tasked with organizing young people from all around the city and connecting the protest to power. And that's one of our mottos here at APA. And we can talk a little bit more. We will talk a little bit more about some of the things we do later on.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and for being here. Father Paul, I'm going to turn to you, sir. Set the table for us. You heard that Dr. Kathi mentioned we're here, and Toya and the others here to talk about trauma, here to talk about work that's happening in our communities, that's affecting our communities, and to talk about some exciting things that have happened recently. So why are we here, and how would you lead us off?
Yes, thank you, Josiah. Well, as Dr. Kathi had mentioned, trauma is a significant issue, certainly for many communities in our region. We have to talk about not only the personal experience of trauma, but that trauma is so widespread that the impact of historical, multi-generational, complex trauma is very pervasive in many of our communities. It has severely impacted health and well-being in many of our communities. This is a critical time, I believe, for this discussion because, of course, 2020, we've seen not only a pandemic, also a racial reckoning. Much, I believe, because the pandemic has exposed many of the injustices that have plagued us and the traumas that have resulted therefrom. We know that certainly African Americans, for example, have died at nearly 3 times the rate of whites from COVID-19, and we can also understand that those death rates are higher in communities that are formerly redline communities. This is a direct correlated example of how policy injustice and the trauma that has resulted therefrom has negatively impacted health and well-being in our community. Now, here in the state of Pennsylvania, we're at a very unique time in that in July of 2019, Governor Wolf signed an executive order asking for essentially an analysis of Pennsylvania systems and how they affect the most vulnerable Pennsylvanians. This was an extraordinary step, and it has started a wide degree of effort and conversation and exploration, really around this topic of trauma. We know that trauma is so pervasive here in the Commonwealth. Certainly in the cities, we have the experience of trauma, and in particular in communities of color, disproportionate experience of trauma. Also, in the rural areas of our Commonwealth, we have experiences of trauma as well. This led to Governor Wolf actually commissioning a trauma-informed think tank in January of 2020 to explore this issue. And the question posed really to this think tank was, what would it take for Pennsylvania to become a trauma-informed state over the next 10 years? What would really it take? Now, it's fascinating because on a national level, there's been some movement around this. There's 3 states who have already made the commitment to become trauma-informed states. Missouri, Delaware, Wisconsin have already made that commitment. We thought, though, perhaps it would be possible to build on the work that's done in these 3 previous states and leverage the local expertise here in Pennsylvania and try to really put together a plan that we could operationalize at a local level. There were 25 thought leaders that were engaged by the governor's office in this process over a series about over a period of about 4 months. Certainly a lot of meeting, reviewing what trauma-informed plans in Wisconsin, Delaware, and Missouri had already existed, looking at what some of the leading thinking around this was, as well as really reflecting on the wide degree of expertise and experience that was a part of the think tank. I was privileged to have participated in that process. And in July of 2020, deep in the midst of the pandemic, in the context of the racial reckoning that's happening in the nation, the plan was published, a 72-page document that's Pennsylvania's trauma-informed plan. The plan to make Pennsylvania a trauma-informed state over the next 10 years. Now, if you review that document, which I would encourage everyone to do, although it's 72 pages, it's not a very dense read. It's 72, we might say, loose pages. I mean, there's graphs and things like that. So it's not just dense reading. But I really would encourage all of our regional leaders to at least review it, become acquainted with it. You'll see if you do that it's not really detail oriented, but rather provides a framework with which we hope work on a local level can not only be incorporated, but can contribute and participate. Sometimes I've heard people say we need to ask the state of Pennsylvania what they're doing so that we know. And that's not how we need to approach this plan. We need to approach this plan as an opportunity to build a new Pennsylvania. That's what I really hope this plan is an invitation really for Pennsylvanians who are doing extraordinary work in the realm of trauma and resilience to participate in building a new Pennsylvania. And there's a lot of freedom for creativity and innovation and room to incorporate impactful initiatives that are already happening in our Commonwealth on a local level. Once the plan was published, the Governor's Office of Advocacy and Reform put together a collaborative group that is being called now at the state level HEAL PA, which stands for Healing, Empowerment, Advocacy, Learning, Prevention, Healing, Empowerment, Advocacy, and Learning is what HEAL stands for. And the idea is that there's a series of action teams that really comprise this organization. So the teams, I'll just review them very quickly. There is a number of universal teams to include community outreach and community action. There's a policy and legislation action team, There's a development action team. This is where we're talking about how we can raise money to fund this. Beyond that, there are also targeted teams. So there's a training action team. There's an education action team, obviously focusing on our schools. There's a racial and communal trauma prevention action team. This is one of the teams that I actually coach in. Criminal justice reform, poverty reduction, business involvement, child abuse prevention, data and evaluation, organizational support, and physical and behavioral health action teams. These teams are currently now, they are now recruiting members. They have begun their work. They are trying to really develop plans with SMART goals, taking annual priorities, maybe one long-term priority and one short-term priority, but really so we can move in this direction. Now, the final piece that I'll say before I turn it back to you, Brother Josiah, is that as all of this was happening, the United Way of Pennsylvania also came to the understanding that it was time to make a commitment as it relates to trauma in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And in as much as this work has now come out of the governor's office, there's a partnership, a collaborative partnership that's emerging between United Way of Pennsylvania and now HEAL PA at the Governor Wolf's office. United Way of Pennsylvania just last week announced that they are launching what's called Resilient PA, which is beautifully complementary to HEAL PA. And I'll just read to you exactly Resilient PA, what it is, okay? It's a nonpartisan coalition, strives to foster resilient Pennsylvania youth, families, and communities through promoting trauma-informed care and systems across sectors, as well as promoting efforts to reduce risk factors and increase protective factors for youth and families to break cycles of family and community trauma. It's very powerful, this idea that there are cycles of trauma that we're going to make a commitment to break. The coalition exists to raise awareness on the impact of trauma, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, raise some awareness about childhood trauma, as well as to raise awareness about trauma experienced by different cultural, racial, or ethnic groups. There are certain groups in the Commonwealth, certainly, that historically have experienced trauma just by virtue of their race or ethnicity. And of course, also to promote the benefits of adopting trauma-informed and resilience-building practices and strategies to address critical social challenges at both the community and state level. We don't want to talk only about poverty. We don't want to talk only about creating opportunity. We want to have a trauma-informed approach to do this. We say in our work, Neighborhood Resilience Project, that it's not enough to create the opportunity. We have to have people who are healthy enough to sustain that opportunity. I will close with this review. This is the statewide platform. Resilient PA intends to do the following. It intends to connect local communities engaged in or interested in adopting trauma-informed approach, right? To be a convener, a connector. Second, to highlight and share local best practices in trauma-informed care systems and communities. Thirdly, to provide standardized language. Sometimes we talk about trauma in different, and that word actually means different things to different people, right? This idea, we want to provide standardized language and tips on how to engage business leaders and elected officials as champions for trauma-informed care. Fourth, act as a unifying and magnifying vehicle for local communities and trauma-informed care champions to advocate for trauma-informed and resilience-building policies, practices, and funding. And finally, Resilient PA is working to act as a key communication link with HEAL PA. This is where we want to say that United Way has a powerful ability to communicate. And so we understand that with HEAL PA, there can certainly be a communication channel there with HEAL PA and grassroots level champions and advocates across the state. This is a very important time for us as Pennsylvanians. In particular, if we are in communities that have been inundated with trauma for multiple generations, these communities that have people who are doing incredibly extraordinary and heroic work, who are themselves already leaders and champions, this is the time now. This is the time for us to come forward and participate. This is the time for us to build that Pennsylvania that we all that we have to believe is possible.
It's so wonderful to hear the story. Thank you so much for sharing. Let me just speak back what I'm hearing, and I wonder if you would express how locally people started to rally around this, the various initiatives. So you see this moment of leadership, the latest in an ongoing conversation, including the governor commissioning this think tank, doing a national scan to look at how other states have approached this. Then there's this acknowledgement that in order for this work to be truly successful, it has to be connected to what's happening on the ground, to engage with local leaders, local expertise, so that the solutions are sustainable, and so that they actually have a chance of succeeding. Let's be honest, that there's a way to connect directly. What happened from then? Because I know we've been having conversations with local folks, and how do you describe in general terms the work that's happening in this region from your perspective?
Yes, well, as part of this work, some watching today may be familiar with a gentleman by the name of Rob Reed, who has been heavily involved, certainly with the governor's efforts. Even before the governor did this, Rob Reed, he's worked for the state attorney general's office. And of course, the state attorney general has had a significant interest on the impact of trauma as it relates to the criminal justice system. Of course, many people that have been incarcerating have significant trauma histories. And of course, the attorney general's office, they were well aware of that. Rob Reed was more or less commissioned by the attorney general's office, the state attorney general's office, to really travel across Pennsylvania and work not only to better understand this issue, but to communicate and try to build a network of that could be leveraged to better address this challenge. From this work, Rob Reed, now having previously worked at the U.S. Attorney General's office, has now, in the context of HEAL PA, reached out to Tamara Collier, who of course is one of our own local heroes, who is so well respected and is certainly a woman who, when she calls, the people answer. Yeah. And of course, Rob understood, just as we all do understand that really on a local level, you have to have these local champions. Tamara was, having a relationship with Rob was very eager to really join in this work and put out a call to some of what I would describe as some of the leading champions, thought leaders, and heroes of our region. Now, I want to say it's certainly not an exhaustive list. We know that there are many people who, let me say, have not yet been called. Mm-hmm. Let me just say not yet been called, but it is very beautiful core group of persons who have come together, who are, I could say with confidence, they're leading our region in addressing some of the most significant traumas and challenges of our time. Mm-hmm. This group that has now come together around Tamara is looking at what really the work that has been done locally that is really contributing to helping our region. What is the work that's being done locally that is trauma informed, even if it's perhaps not described first and foremost as being trauma informed? Just for example, some of the work that around gun violence that Tylee Thompson and Reverend Cornell Jones and Richard Garland and others are doing, they might not necessarily describe themselves as being trauma informed when you first hear them speak. What they're doing is extremely trauma informed. So making sure, that's just one example of what we have in this group to help again, going back to Resilient PA, help give people the language so that they understand when they are building resilience, when they are helping our communities heal from trauma. I'm very excited about this particular series because we're going to get a chance, I hope and I pray, to hear from some of these champions, not only about their work, but I think also for them to model what really it means to do this work in a community level, and hopefully understand that in doing this work, it does make a difference. It does make an impact. Yes, redlining has severely affected our community, but just as that is so too the case, whenever we come forward with the right strategies, with a good heart, with good resources, we can reverse the impact of these traumas, negative experiences, and even moreover, we can build the kind of resilience that helps us withstand crises. The CDC talks about social vulnerability in communities. And if there's one thing that we see as COVID-19 has struck our community is that some of our communities in the Commonwealth have what we call high social vulnerability. They're very vulnerable. They're vulnerable as a result of historical policy. They're vulnerable as a result of disinvestment. They're vulnerable as a result of racism, whatever, and many other reasons. We understand that we can reduce social vulnerability in building resilience. We can know when we're building resilience, and we can do so in a way that fosters the kind of healing that we as a community truly need. And there are people here in this county who are doing this extraordinary work every day.
That's right. I'll take the opportunity to turn to some of our champions that we have on the call with us, but I want to acknowledge what you said in the name that you mentioned earlier, and I would encourage folks to look up some of these names and organizations as they're being mentioned, because it's very encouraging and inspiring to learn about what they're doing, but also because there's ever more coordination in this space, and it's really giving us a chance of being successful. Reverend Paul mentioned Tylee Thompson, Operation Better Block, a returned citizen himself, someone that's been a tremendous champion. Reverend Cornell Jones, group violence intervention work through the city of Pittsburgh. I mean, they're responding, they're intervening down to like the specific instance, you know, whether it's monitoring social media or monitoring a developing situation in a neighborhood, utilizing relationships, stepping in there themselves, putting themselves on the line. Richard Garland, University of Pittsburgh, hospital-based intervention work. I mean, it's just really incredible stuff. It's informed by evidence-based models, national best practices, and sometimes folks just don't know the level of excellence that's, you know, in our midst. And let's not make the same mistake in this conversation. I'm going to turn to the rest of our champions now and bring them into the conversation. Toya, thank you so much for being here. I saw some fond hand claps to the mention of Reverend Jones, which what more can you say? What are your reactions? What do you hear when you hear Father Paul talking about? And then what's the why that informs the work that you do, as you explain a little bit more about what you've been up to?
Yeah, well, I have to give fond claps. That's my husband and the father of my children, so I better give a round of applause. But I'm just really so honored to be called to the table. And what is so really cool is that my husband was called to the table too. And we didn't even know that we were both called to the table. We're like, I have a meeting, so do I. You know, Tamara has juice. She has lots of important friends, and we all came together. I've been hearing about what just the folks on this call, host included, what you all been doing through the city. You know, I have a pleasure of working with Dr. Kathi for years, and then pulled back and work with Gwen's girls right now, the therapy department. And I've been hearing just so many great things of Father Paul, Josiah, and Tay. So nice to meet you, but hearing good things about your organization. And so what Tamara did is she picked up the phone and called her friends, but not out of, being pompous, but saying, we have an issue here. We have a trauma issue on these streets and in our community with our brown people. And what are we going to do about it? And the way Tamara knows me is that I did some trainings for the United States federal courts, for the judges, for the attorneys, and I'm also an expert witness for the incarcerated population, for the defense department. And so I'm still doing that work with the defendants. And she said, everybody needs to hear what you're saying. I said, well, my students hear what I'm saying. My clients, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So I'm a therapist, a trauma therapist. So they get to hear what I'm saying. And she said, no, everybody needs to hear what you're saying. And I'm probably the most shy extrovert that I know. I'm like, I don't want to say anything. And she's like, come to this group and there's going to be, and she mentioned the names. I said, wow, I've been hearing about everything that these folks are doing. So she pulled us all together to say, let's get together and talk about what we are used to talking about in our individual separate lives. Let's come together and join forces. That is something that we need to see more in our Black community. So we don't say no to Tamara, and the cause was amazing. Like, well, of course, I don't turn down an opportunity to talk to people. Father Paul mentioned it. Our people, Black people in particular, have a historic line of trauma. Like we endure trauma and we say, That's just everyday life. That's just what goes on in the hood. It's like, no, no, no. These are abnormal things that are happening to normal people, and we're having normal responses. So what can we do? Well, what we can do as trauma specialists and trauma experts that are in this group is impart the knowledge. This is what you're going through. This is how you can heal. And so these mini healing promotions or mini healing groups and knowledge videos, whatever we want to name it. This is an opportunity to educate our people in our community about, and not just educate, but equip them with the tools to get through what they are experiencing. Father Paul mentioned COVID, and COVID just, I mean, pumped up what traumatic events we've gone through as Black people. COVID magnified it to 10,000, and so there are resources that have kicked in throughout the community, but what are the resources that Black people can go to? I remember when I first started out being a therapist, Black people walk in like, I was like, whoa, you're Black. So we're already starting off where I could talk to you and you understand, and we don't have to start off with, let me explain my history of oppression. You already know. And so that really is what propelled me even into going into mental health, into therapy. And how I got into trauma is, it was a job. Like, let me get this job, and I'm working with these trauma folks. And then I began to realize this is not just a job. This is your calling. This is what you're put on the earth for, is to really help educate folks, but help equip them with the tools they need to get through their traumatic events, to get through this. We can heal, but you just have to know how.
So I hear two things there that I'd like you to expound upon, if you would. This idea of education, but then also equipping. So can you talk about in this space what the realities are around learning from your perspective? Are folks learning more about trauma? Are they taking more into consideration, or what more needs to be done? And then when you say equipping, what does that mean? What does that mean in the context of the work that you've done, and what you think success looks like moving forward?
Yeah, I think equipping, I'll start backwards and then go to the other one. I think equipping has to do with first knowing what you are experiencing, knowing that all that junk, all that stuff that happened to you may have left a mark, may have had an impact. And what impact did it have? Well, these behaviors, or these things that I'm doing, or these things that I'm smoking, these things that why am I covering this up, and why do I have these habits, or why do I have this temper, and that's just him. Those are natural and normal trauma reactions to the traumatic events that have happened. Well, our community has symptoms. We as individuals have symptoms. And I say we because Father Paul mentioned the ACEs study. The ACEs study shows that there is a very large percentage of folks that have experienced trauma all through childhood, well into adulthood. And we're carrying it like these really heavy backpacks full of books and weights, and we're toting it around, but we don't realize that there's a freedom and healing that can come through that. So tools and techniques on how you can deal with whatever symptoms you have. Symptoms, I mean, by if you have, so my allergies are really whacked out right now. So the symptoms that I have are a little itchy nose, a headache, my eyes are itching. These are symptoms that I know I have allergy issues. Same thing with trauma. And people have to look at trauma as that. It's not anything wrong with you. It's something that happened to you. You got whatever blew on you through you watching this or you experiencing it yourself. So what do I do to calm these symptoms, to calm these racing thoughts? And I can't sleep and I can't eat, and what is going on? But there are certain techniques and tools that you can be equipped with to help to calm that part of your brain and your body down. So we got together and said, we can do an educational series that talks about the impact of trauma from a little baby all the way to our older population, to our kings, our queens, our older population. What can we do, and how do we equip our people with tools and how to overcome that? And so we put our heads together and said, these educational series, these little mini series, these healing series can help to educate people about what they are experiencing, and then help to give them the tools, but then also turn them on to the resources where they're going to walk in the room and say, there's a Black face, or somebody looks like me, and someone understands what oppression is about for me and my people. So that's what I mean by equipping them, but also with the knowledge and the education.
Thank you. You know, just listening to you talk, I want to turn to Dr. Kathi because something you said at the very beginning was this is something that we should be talking about, something that is often not talked about. I just wonder what your reflections are so far in the conversation we've had so far, because I know you all work so much with various populations, but with young people in particular. What's on your mind and heart?
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, everything that Father Paul and Toya has expressed is definitely spot on. Just shout out to Tamara, who has brought us all together. And one of the main things that we know is that, and it's not unique to Pittsburgh, but it happens all the time, is that there's great work happening in our city, but it's so siloed. And like I have a relationship with Father Paul, I have a relationship with Toya that goes way back. And it's around, you know, this work in trauma and working with young people. But as a collective, we've not had an opportunity to come together. And so to come together on an issue that is so important, not only for, you know, the adults, but our children, because our children, just think about this last year of just the traumatic experiences that they all have. And this is outside of like just everyday stuff. Like, you know, everyday stuff is happening in our communities, whether it's might be somebody in our family passes away from natural causes or whatever. Now, you know, we heard last night about all the gun violence that happened in our city. Like all these things impact our children directly and indirectly. We talk about vicarious trauma. So all the things that they're hearing on the news and seeing that's happening, not being in school, you know, this COVID-19 has changed, you know, what usual things happen for our young people. Like I feel so bad for those that graduated last year and are due to graduate this year. Like their high school experience is altered forever. Right. And so how do they cope? How do they deal with that? You know, I'm a person who, you know, for the past like 4 or 5 years and the work that we've done at Gwen's Girls and looking at research and, you know, looking at our terminology, this use the word of resiliency. And, you know, I often struggle because I know that there are certain conditions that, you know, young people, you know, people say, well, she's resilient. She graduated. Well, these are normal things that she should have access to. And it shouldn't be like she, you know, made this achievement out of barriers that shouldn't even be there in the first place. But truly this past year, I can say our young people are resilient because there's been so many different things thrown at them, you know, that have no cause. We would have no idea that they was going to happen, and they have been coping. However, some of our young people are struggling and have not been equipped with the skills or even the resources or know what to do because, you know, yeah, I'm supposed to be online right now, but I just don't feel like it. I'm sad, I'm not eating, you know, or I'm overeating and I'm just so hyper and I just can't sit in front of the camera. And so one day turns into 10. So now I'm behind academically. And so no one is really taking the time to ask, what are some of these underlying issues that our young people are dealing with, right? And so how to address them. And so the beauty of this collaboration is saying, how do we put out materials that can reach everybody and that parents can have resources and the young people can have resources, teachers and counselors can have additional resources. I was on a call earlier today and we were talking about just, they're not even in school, but then even when they were in school, there's not enough support for social workers and mental health support in the school. So then who do they turn to, right? And so it's been, you know, just an awesome opportunity to start this conversation as a collective, looking at that collective impact on how do we, you know, take an issue that we know is impacting our children and our families throughout our city. And this is definitely in a Black community where we don't want to go and talk to, somebody about our problems. A lot of problems supposed to stay in the house, don't tell nobody our business. And then, but the main thing too is what Toya talked about, and I get it too, because I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And when people would come in and see me, they, or know that I'm a Black therapist or somebody that can help them with their mental health, they were just so relieved. And so those are the things that are necessary for young people and for, people in our community to feel that they are being heard and that their, issues will get addressed, is having people that look like them there to help them. And we as a community can actually make that happen.
Thank you so much. Something we talked about in the lead up to this conversation, and I think about Toya mentioned this idea. You said it so well. I don't think I've heard it quite phrased like that. These are abnormal things happening to normal people, and they're reacting normally. And I pair that with this idea I hear from you, Doctor, which is that some of these things have been normalized. Some of these traumas and these stressors. Can you speak to that? And how do you approach dealing with that, both in terms of how you're serving people and in terms of raising general awareness about the work?
Yeah, so what we do is, girls that come through our program and that we have contact with in the schools and in the community, we give them information. First of all, just understanding that a lot of things that they're going through are not their fault. Someone talked earlier about this historical and transgenerational trauma and issues that our young people, kind of experience, and just don't have an idea that really, not to say that they were born into, some of these inequities, but it is what it is, right? And so it doesn't mean that you have to, be a hostage or be, kind of tied down or not be able to excel because of, some of the things that you have been born into or that exist in your family or even in your communities, right? And so we teach the girls, first of all, especially at a time in adolescence is when you're kind of trying to understand who you are. And our society often tries to tell our young Black kids who they are, and that narrative is not correct, right? So we, try to make sure that they have some positive role models and positive, feedback on just who they are and that they're good enough the way that they are, and that they have a voice, and just helping them to understand that just because certain things have been presented to you in a certain way, you have the right to question, you have a great mind to be able to think and process, and that your voice matters. And at the end of the day, that, the adults that are supposed to be there to protect you and to nurture you, to really call upon them to do that. But then ultimately they have to rely on each other. Young people have, for many, many years, their greatest support is often their peer group and people that they, know that they can come and talk to. And so that's the other thing that we do. We equip them with information, not only to be able to, kind of recognize the signs of need of support or to talk to somebody, but so that when they see their friends going through something, whether it's, depression, anxiety, unhealthy relationships, to give them the resources of how to, help their friends to deal with it. And that it's okay to ask for help. A lot of times our young people don't want to ask for help because when they do ask for help, it's minimized or it's not taken seriously. One of the things that we're focused on at Gwen's Girls is looking at, sexual harassment in schools and, this, school to prison pipeline and our girls being suspended because of issues that oftentimes are subjective and crutched into this disorderly conduct type of charge. But at the end of the day, oftentimes it's them just, expressing themselves, and somebody, the adult doesn't like the way that they express themselves, but it's not a crime. The other thing that, people we just talked about earlier is that we all deal with trauma and incidents differently, right? And so when we see behaviors as adults, what I would love to see happen, and I believe this group is going to make sure that this happens, and that these coalitions locally and then statewide is going to make sure that happen is that adults take the time to hear and to listen and to see what is happening with young people and look at the behaviors as behaviors and not as crimes. Don't criminalize what they're going through. And it may just be a moment. They may be having, we all have had a moment. Allow them to have that moment, provide the support that they need, or even just leave them alone for a little bit, but then go back and check up on them. But please don't call the police. Please don't refer them to the juvenile justice system. That's what our, when adults don't know what to do, or, and including sometimes our parents, sadly enough, but they don't know what to do. They call the police thinking that that's going to be the best resource, and that ends up being not the case. And the police will tell you that. Juvenile probation will tell you that our system is not equipped to provide these mental health or social service supports that really are called for in these situations.
Thank you so much. Tay, I'd like to turn to you. I see some head nods and snaps on your end. I have some questions for you, of course, but I'd like to just honor what's been said so far and hear what reactions you have to the things that you've heard in the conversation up to this point.
Yes. So first of all, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be in this space with folks who have paved the way for young people to feel supported and safe, and no matter what capacity they come, whether it's at school or in the community. And so I really am grateful to share space. And then I also am grateful to hear that we have folks champion who are not currently in school getting educated, but championing against the school to prison pipeline, and relating that to trauma, because it is very traumatic. And so I guess I could say to give an example of how the school to prison pipeline can be traumatic. So for me, I'm born and raised in Detroit. I was a student in the Detroit public school system. And my high school was one of the newer high schools in the district. It still is one of the newer high schools in the district. And so from my 9th to 12th grade experience, going through the front doors of my school, I had 3 metal detectors, 3 security guards, and 3 police officers. And then like literally a mini police station right in the beginning of my school, in the front of my school. No, this is not an exaggeration. And in fact, this is the literal depiction of what young people see all across the country and see here in Pittsburgh, in some schools. And so we see that the disenfranchisement of Black and brown folks, that these highly militarized budgets that are being spent on to criminalize Black and brown young people for behaviors that are normal, and that we only have. I think someone said on a call on one of our trauma-informed groups calls that the only time we get to learn about behaviors and learn right from wrong is when we're young people. And so if we're charging us, and if we're getting put into the criminal industrial system, and the juvenile justice system, if we're getting sit there, we don't even get the opportunity to learn. We don't get the opportunity to grow. We don't get the opportunity to share space and actually learn how to develop social skills. And then we revisit to this last summer, and we experience the trauma around young people before they were sent home from school because of COVID-19. Before they were sent home from school because of COVID-19, these young people had police in the schools already, right? Police interactions, seeing police interactions daily on the street. And then they see we're all forced at home to sit here and watch the execution of a Black man, and yet again, right? And so the fear is still there. The trauma is still there. What happens when we go back into the schools, right? The people who are here to protect and serve me are the same people that I see outside killing my family, killing my brothers and my sisters, right? And so the trauma sometimes even exists in our bodies. And when we driving in the car, or we're in the car with folks and we're driving on our way to anywhere, and as soon as we see the police, our body locks up. Right. And so this is how young people experience a way that young people experience trauma. And I really just wanted to lift that up, and I really wanted to say thank you for being able to champion for young people who may not even know about what the school to prison pipeline is, because I didn't know what it was, but I knew I didn't know what it was when I first started this work, but I knew it was wrong. I knew that there was no way that we should be having this much of a budget for for surveillance and policing in our schools, but this is a newer school to the district, and we have school books that my teachers were using when they were students, right? And so we know that that's not right. We say we need to be investing more in the success of young people than the criminalization of it.
Well, we're grateful to have you in the region now. Could you share a little bit more about the work that you do with young people here, and how APA approaches this work? We had an interesting conversation prepping for this call, and this idea of how you all consider the notion of trauma, I think, is very compelling. So would you share a little bit more with folks that might not be familiar, the work you do related to the school to prison pipeline and with young people?
Yes. So activism, APA, the Alliance for Police Accountability, is getting ready to launch a youth organizing institute for young people for all across the city to actually be able to develop those skills, those sociable skills, develop those skills, the organizing 101 and base building. And actually getting the historical context of why people go out into the street, getting the historical context, the breakdown of how these systems impact us. And so we're doing that with a trauma-aware lens. And so we're being aware of trauma. And so we know that this correlates to our work, and that trauma is one of the fruits of this tree that we're fighting. It's one of the troops, and it's one of the productions of this of like these systems that we're fighting, and it's the residue left over. And so when we go into this work, we're going into this work knowing that trauma exists, and we're going into this work patient. We're going into this work knowing that we ourselves are still building and growing from trauma, because trauma is not a thing that we just heal from one day. It's a continual thing, and it takes us together to identify what we are actually traumatized by, identify that we may be traumatized by these things. And so we come into this space being aware that that trauma shows up in different ways, and we're bringing folks into this space to make sure that we're leading this work with a trauma-informed lens, and that people who are actually particularly skilled in this work are regurgitating the things that they learned and that they know, so that our young people and that our staff are completely knowledgeable of what's going on, and we can be able to operate and coexist together and be able to flourish, and then from there go out into the community and heal our community. And so we have a holistic approach to trauma, which means we're attacking every piece at one time, and we're attempting to attack every piece at one time. And sometimes that may look like, how can we talk about getting food security for young people and invite them to meetings, and then we don't have food for them, right? It's that trauma, that exploitive and trauma, the exploitiveness causes the trauma. And like, I don't even trust the movement space no more. I don't even trust the spaces that's trying to help. And so we're attacking the needs, we're attacking the needs, we're attacking the issues, and we're moving power, building power for young people across the city by also healing at the same time.
I love that. And it makes me think about the equipping conversation we've been having. One last quick question for you, sir, and I'd like to turn to the entire group for some closing remarks and just where we go from here. Tay, how old are you, and what is your message to your peers about this kind of work? A lot of what I hear you saying is that you're engaging with folks where they're at. So you're focused on, providing care, love, and support in the moment. If you were to talk about, this group and some of the leaders that you're on the call with today, how would you speak directly to them about it?
Yeah. So firstly, I'm 20 years old. I just turned 20 in November. Welcome to the Dub Club. Anyways, so yeah, one thing that I would definitely go into this space and go into any space and talk about, and when I talk to my peers, people same age as me, impacted by the same issues, right? Intersectionality is a strong value for me. It's where all of our issues connect. But what I do is I always tell folks is that there should not be a space that's talking about issues that young people are impacted by if young people aren't at the table. And so that motto is like, nothing about us without us. There should be no conversations about how young people feel safe if young people aren't informed in how we feel safe. Young people should be defining Young people should be defining what safety looks like for us, and how young people should also be defining how they're traumatized by events and situations, because we understand that a lot of times we have people speaking for us, speaking for a demographic of people, and it doesn't really relate to what is really going on the ground. And so we're meeting people where they're at, as you said, we're meeting people where they're at, and we're talking to them and letting them know, like, you are the most valuable piece. You are the most valuable piece to any movement space, because this work is about us. This work is about healing us together, and there's no us without you.
Mm-hmm. It's so tremendous. I want to bring everyone back into the conversation. Just some reactions, to what's been said. It's always a special opportunity to have a younger voice that can speak with such passion and eloquence to these issues. What are some of the reactions from the rest of you on what you just heard? And just the work in general.
So I would like to say thank you to Tay. Just phenomenal to have you, part of this,
yes.
and your voice, and you representing the Dub Club very well. Similar. We have a motto. We say the same thing at Gwen's Girls. Our young girls say that nothing about us without us, and so we have, taken strides to make sure that any decision that's made, any program that we're, looking to initiate, we include them in that. And so just thank you for, being here and, being that representation, because it is so important. Many times adults, systems leaders, people make decisions and then take the decision to the people that are impacted the most and say, here, we have something new that we want to, give you. And meanwhile, I've been a culprit of this, we're 2 years behind. Young people move fast. The things that trends that are happening in our communities happen so fast that by the time us adults get wind of it and try to be part of it, y'all on to a whole nother thing. There's a whole nother issue that needs to be addressed. And so if we would learn, and I've learned, and I hope our listeners and people that are watching this learn, that if we include the young people from the very beginning, that's half the battle. Mm-hmm. Is they have the solutions. They have the solutions. Today I watched the debate that was at Westinghouse High School. The young people, I was most impressed with the young people that was running the debate. And that's enough I'll say about that, but they did a wonderful job. But we need to do more of that. I love that.
Yes, our young people are brilliant. There's no denying that, whatsoever. Any amount of engagement with them and their ability to navigate systems and technology and stuff like that, like that's familiarity with architecture and an ability to navigate in real time. That's what that is. And if sometimes I think as trends change, folks are like, well, is this really valuable? I mean, their brains are firing when they're doing that. And I think that's really special. Toya, Father Paul, what thoughts do you have? And then I have some closing questions to wrap us up.
I just wanted to say, I'm glad you did ask me how old I was. I'm just gonna start with that because the Dub Club is far behind me. Like way back
dub. No.
Dub. But I want to just say, Tay, thank you for that. Like that was amazing, and you're such a powerful and passionate speaker. I could tell that you talk what you walk and walk what you talk, and so I'm so glad to have you at the table as we plan and as we move forward. One thing that struck me is that we have to remember, and this is part of these mini series that you'll be seeing, is that each person that is exposed to trauma and that experiences trauma, whether it be in the community, as a witness or individually, something traumatic happening to you, at each developmental stage or at each age level, we experience it a different way. We take it in and think about it differently because cognitively our minds are developing still, or on the other end of developing. And so we experience them differently, which means we're going to have different quote unquote symptoms and different reactions to them. And so young people, I'm so proud of you for saying like, yeah, we go through some traumatic events too. And we have issues, or we have things that we're dealing with because of these traumatic events. A lot of times young people won't say that this bothered me and this really upset me, you know, to see this happen, to maybe see my mother be struck by her significant other, or to see us have food you know, drought issues, and to live in poverty, or to see my brother get shot in the street. You know, it's not bothering me, because in the Black community, we're like, we stay strong. We go through everything. We've been through slavery. What you talking about? You know, and that's what we build on. We're strong. We're strong. Yes, we're strong, but how much more can our back hold? My God. And so for you to come out and say, like, yeah, we experienced that. We experienced that in the school when we feel like they're pushing us out into the prison. We experience these things. Listen, we're talking. That is such an impact, and that's going to make such a difference when we're speaking to the youth. Like, listen, from every age group, from the infant to the old, we experience trauma, but we experience it in different ways. And look out for this. This is what maybe we might be experiencing. But guess what? There's tools, there's techniques, there's ways that you can heal and cope through it at any age. So I really appreciate the words you said.
Thank you. Thank you. Father Paul.
Yeah, well, Tay, I really, it's been quite an honor and a blessing, really, to just see your commitment and clearly your perseverance, your talent, your intelligence, your ability to articulate the issue. And I believe the care and concern that you have for your brothers and sisters when you articulate it is extraordinarily powerful. I think it's very important when I hear you speak, it's very important to understand, I've heard it once said that history, it's not something that happens to us as much as it's ours to write. And I think one of the real challenges is that sometimes, even at a young age, or especially at a young age, this is when we fall into this false belief that the world is what happens to you. And so really the work that you're doing is extraordinarily important, because really the message that you can really make a difference, the change is possible, that if we find our voice and maintain that unity and make a collective commitment to collective healing, that a better future is on the horizon. And I just want to continue to encourage you to really do that. We must do this work with hope, and that hope must be personified in the leaders among us. And for you, I can tell you, this day you have personified hope for me.
Thank you. Ashe. Ooh.
Really wonderful. Okay, my friends, we've been talking for almost an hour here. It's very clear that we could spend probably many more talking about this. We do have upcoming conversations where we'll do deeper dives on these themes and really lean into these intersections, engage with expertise, uplift voices and community that are making a difference here. But I'm just feeling edified by this conversation, and I'd like to open up the floor just for final encouragements to folks. And this can be to check out your organizations or just in their own personal wellness journey, as they're encountering life as it's unfolding. Certainly, we've all had this shared experience of COVID that has impacted us. It is hard for us. You talked about the connectivity, Tay, of intersectionality, that where our struggles are connected, our lives are connected. I think that COVID's been clarifying in that respect. And when I hear Toya talk, and maybe it's just Father Paul being on the call, but I think of the notion of the way of the wise winds upwards, and that you can encounter things at different parts of your journey more than once, but you can also encounter them from a different perspective as you progress through life. So I'd like to just open up the table for last round of encouragements, just whatever's on your heart and mind to share with folks that are watching, and then we'll wrap up.
So I'll go first. I'll just say, and I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, it's been something that on my spirit to tell people, just keep fighting. Like, sometimes every day is a fight, and then there's certain things, issues that you have to fight through. Just keep going, right? And then the other thing that I want to lift up for the group is that this is an open group. This isn't a select people that only a few of us can participate in. If you heard something that you feel that you have the expertise to help us into moving this forward and spreading the word and getting people the help and the supports that they need to address trauma and mental health issues, please, I know that there's going to be information that is going to be part of this broadcast that you can reach out and to get involved. We need you. That collective impact is definitely the only way that we're going to make it through this together, because we are a community. And without all of us being at the table and being involved, and all of us that have been called to do so and have the skill set to do so, we need to, help our brothers and sisters out. So please get involved if you feel you fit that call.
Beautiful. Thank you. Tay, I see you're unmuted. You want to lead us off next?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to any young people who may be watching, and I wanted to tell you, take that step. Go ahead. Don't worry. Don't even worry about what like people may think about what your step is. I think I would dare you to define what is your non-negotiable. I would dare you to define why are you involved in this space. I would dare you to even look at some of the stuff that may be normalized, and look at some of the stuff and see, break it down and say, maybe this really isn't right. And then ask yourself, what can you do? What is it that's in your capacity that you can do? And I wouldn't tell you to just jump straight into an organization. I wouldn't tell you to just like, oh, come be housed in APA. I would tell you to be led to see what the work that you want to do. Where do you see the change needed? I actually wanted to see more informed folks. I want to see folks more informed about the work that's going on, right? I want to see folks feel the investment, like see that this work is real. And one of the things that I wanted to lead with is, like, we've seen over these last 4 years that people have been making policies, and people have been making policies and structures that impact us, that we are not invited to. We are not invited to the table. And I say, make your own table. Because we keep on trying to recreate these systems and trying to fix these systems that's never worked for us in the first place. And so one of our models at APA is we're not even for the reform, we're for the reconstruction. Like, we're rebuilding this whole thing so that it can work for us and it's worked by us. You understand? This is our thing. This is our movement. And I would also say take ownership, because we can't heal unless it's us all together. We can't win unless it's us all together. And us means ownership of your people. Us means ownership of what your vision is. Take ownership and drive it. And I promise you, once you take that drive, somebody gonna walk behind you, and the people who's been watching you forever is gonna step behind you, and you're gonna look back. And I'm telling y'all from experience, you're gonna be like, your whole community is backing you because they were just waiting for you. They were just waiting for you. And so take that step, whatever that step may be.
That's powerful. And I just want to just echo that a little bit, this idea for folks that want to get involved, honor your curiosity. Honor your interests, like honor what you resonate with. There's a bunch of levels to this game. We need folks that are educated to the next point, right? Once you found what you're interested in, educate yourself about the landscape and what you can do. But that's the best place to start. It might be with food. It might be with mental health. It might be with policy. There's a slot on the wall for everybody. But honor what you seem to resonate with first, and then start to pull on that thread. You'll be astonished what you'll find if you do that. Toya, any final encouragements, reflections from you?
I'm just encouraged by this group. I love what Dr. Kathi said. And if you are hearing something, you say, I want to be a part of that. I've been saying, when is somebody going to do something? When somebody going to talk to us? And you got somebody. And so come on with it. And, you'll be welcomed with open arms. I just really look forward to the series from this point and what we're going to be able to bring to our community. As Black folk, we're so used to carrying that load. And I feel so liberated by the fact that I feel like we have treasure chests just full of jewels that we're just going to pass out throughout the community. I'm very visual. So this is what I have in my mind. Like, this is freedom. This is healing. This is waiting for us. So I just encourage people to receive it as it comes and really digest it, and then implement these new ways, and implement what they learn throughout their family and their friends, so that generation, it stops where your home is. It stops there. So I really encourage people to just embrace this movement as we gonna move. So come on, move with us.
Love that. Father Paul.
Well, now is the time. This has been an extraordinary year over the past year. Certainly the pandemic has been extremely disruptive, but I will tell you, it's a disruption that, although the cost was very high, I think has created some opportunity. We don't want to go back to the normal of incarceration. We don't want to go back to the normal of gun violence on our streets. We don't want to go back to the normal of failing schools. We don't want to go back to the normal of eviction. We don't want to go back to the normal of transgenerational trauma and vicarious trauma. This is not the normal we want to go back. We've been blessed with an opportunity to reset and to go not back, but forward to a new normal. And with this, I would invoke the wisdom of our ancestors who, when taking up that righteous struggle, understood that they must first anchor themselves. Yes, they anchored themselves spiritually. They anchored themselves in moral truth. They would not accept victory at any cost, but they understood, as our scriptures say, that it profits us nothing if we gain the whole world and lose our soul. This is a time for us to purify our hearts. And yes, we need a movement, but I would say even more than that, we need a virtuous movement. That means we need brothers and sisters of great virtue who will lead us into the future. And with God's help, that better day is coming.
Well, I just want to once again thank each of you for your time, talent, and expertise, and for sharing so authentically and eloquently about these issues and your own work. I am very personally grateful and edified to have spent this time with you. I'd also like to express gratitude to anyone that may be watching live, with us or after the fact. We appreciate that you would take the time to spend part of your day learning about these things. We are going to move forward to unpack more of what's been shared today, to do deeper dives on these themes, to uplift encouraging work that's happening at the state, regional, community, neighborhood level, so that we can be about that network weaving collective impact work ourselves, and also encourage people along the way, because there is good news, and we want to move to Father Paul's point, into a new normal. We want to move from surviving to thriving. We want systems to stop harming. We want communities to harmonize upwards together, and to have the chance to live the vibrant life that is their right. We want to be about that work as a society, as a community, and as a team. So thank you very much for your time. Be on the lookout for more broadcasts from the series. And in the meantime, please take very good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.